I, 26, F, cheated on my boyfriend, 26, M, for a month after he cheated on me. I want to begin by acknowledging that I understand two wrongs do not make a right. Just because he was unfaithful does not mean I should have reciprocated. I genuinely regret my actions and empathize with how he feels. We have been in this relationship for about 5 years. He is a 26-year-old male, and I am a 26-year-old female. Our relationship began in 2020, initially intended to be a casual fling. However, this fling led to regular visits, emotional involvement, and eventually we became a couple. By 2022, I moved in with him, and he was living with family. In 2023, a few family members passed away, one in November being particularly traumatic for me. Without going into excessive detail, I attempted to perform CPR after rigor mortis had already set in. He expressed at that moment that I did everything possible and described me as the best partner anyone could hope for, insisting he could not imagine living life with anyone else. Fast forward to the end of March 2024. We purchased a replacement phone for him after his had been broken for several months. Despite the broken state of his previous phone, I attempted to transfer data from one to the other, which did not work, and he became anxious. I dismissed it without giving it much thought. Then, early in April, his friend's wedding occurred where he was the best man. He had to stay overnight before the wedding and mentioned staying a second night afterward. I was concerned, especially since we had only recently moved to a new apartment in November 2023 due to the family member's death. My concerns were heightened by the fact that we had already heard gunfire behind our apartment, so I expressed my feelings about him being away, but he interpreted it as me trying to control him. I clarified that I did not want to fight about it, just wished to share my feelings. I stayed home and joined a Discord call with his friends, chatting about our activities, but not delving into anything serious. His friends jokingly said that he was at the bachelor party with strippers and engaging with other women. I shrugged it off, saying, "You guys don't know him like I do," and exited the call. Throughout that time, he was not very responsive via text, giving excuses like, "Sorry, I have my phone plugged in and I'm playing pool," or something to that effect. I let it slide. The next day, I drove to the wedding venue. The ceremony was beautiful, and the groom made some touching remarks. My boyfriend asked me to hold his phone while they took photos to avoid a bulge in his pocket. I kept it until it was time to eat. After using the restroom, I returned to see him just finishing his meal, and I handed him his phone. He gave me a strange, almost anxious look, but I brushed it off. After the wedding, we were providing a friend with a ride back to the Airbnb. He inquired about my phone because we needed GPS. Since his phone was fully charged and already had the address stored, I asked why we weren't using his device. He did not respond, and I chose not to press the issue because our friend was in the car, and I feared he would react aggressively, even if our friend wasn't there. We returned home late that night since he decided against staying for a second night. A few days later, I received the news that my mother had been diagnosed with cancer and required immediate surgery. I broke down in tears, and he held me closely, which I found endearing. We visited my mom after her operation. He accompanied me once while I went several times. A few days after that, I found myself awake late at night and briefly glanced at his phone. I noticed the Play Store open with Snapchat pulled up, though not downloaded. This discovery upset me, but I set his phone aside without further investigation until the next day while preparing my son for school. I examined his search history on the Play Store and found that he had researched Whisper, an app called Hush, Snapchat, and Omegle. I downloaded those applications. I am familiar with Whisper. If you uninstall it, it erases your messages but keeps the chat window intact. I observed several conversations and took screenshots, sending them to myself. Hush allows users to view conversations even if the app has been deleted. After downloading it, I saw several chats where he was attempting to engage with women and even sending explicit pictures. I documented that as well. Finally, I downloaded Snapchat, took screenshots of the empty chat boxes, and sent his data from Snapchat to myself before deleting his profile. Upon reviewing the Snapchat conversations, one particular exchange stands out in my mind. A girl asked him, "Have you ever done this before?" To which he replied, "Once before, but you're much hotter." That response hurt deeply. I removed the applications from his phone and checked his gallery. Afterward, I took his work items to him in the bedroom and handed him his phone before leaving the room. Almost immediately, he called for me to return. He said, "I'm sorry, I would have never," then stopped mid-sentence. By the time my son was at the bus stop, he casually mentioned that he thought it was time to break up. I wasn't willing to accept that. I proposed that we could work through our issues. All I really wanted was for him to discuss what had happened, but we had never fully addressed it even now. Fast forward to a few days to a week later, and we seemed to be doing well. I had secretly logged into his Google account to see what he was downloading and the sites he visited. He attempted to do the same. I discovered he had downloaded Whisper again and had been searching for pornography while at work. I confronted him about it, and he became defensive, claiming I was always going through his phone. I clarified that I hadn't looked through it, and when he questioned how I knew, I replied, "Why are you concerned about how I know? Why is it on your phone?" He wanted to end the relationship over this, and at that point, I was ready to let go of our relationship. However, later that night, he started to get affectionate with me, so I thought maybe we should give it another chance. A few days later, he left for work, and once again, I checked his Google account and discovered he had redownloaded Whisper. Call me foolish, but I decided to confront him once more honestly. I probably should have just suspended his line temporarily. When I called, he again asked how I found out, and I told him, "I just know." At this point, it was around June or July 2024. I couldn't discuss anything with him without it becoming a source of conflict. This continued for months, with occasional moments of calm, but also times when he lashed out. I downloaded Whisper to vent about what had transpired earlier that year, communicating with someone through messages. When he discovered this, he exploded, bombarding me with questions and threatening to end the relationship again, which I was fine with since it wasn't the first time. Yet, repeatedly, as nighttime approached, he would initiate physical contact, and I often allowed it. In October of this year, we began discussing our fantasies. He expressed a desire to involve another woman, while I preferred the idea of adding a man. I loved the concept of double penetration. Over time, my fantasy began to fade, and we focused solely on his desire. Though I have an attraction to women, I still wanted what I had expressed. He seemed to be on board with this. I began posting on Whisper about it and received several responses, including one from a couple. I chatted with the guy, who said, "Absolutely, but we need to make sure we vibe first." So I started hanging out with him occasionally. Should have informed my boyfriend, but I hesitated for fear of his reaction and planned to wait until they met to discuss it. That situation ultimately evolved into a friendship. They didn't connect when they met. That was fine. As December approached, I was added to a Discord group after providing my username to someone looking for participants. It included individuals from various countries. I informed him that I was added to the group, but mentioned I was unsure how it had happened. Initially dubious, he eventually accepted this explanation. On one particular day, I shared during a discussion on the server that I had a boyfriend and that my fantasy involved double penetration. Eventually, I connected with someone who lived less than a 12-hour drive away. Our conversation shifted from general topics to flirtatious exchanges, including discussions about including him in the server and private chats where he expressed his intentions. Again, I made the mistake of not informing my boyfriend. Absolutely my fault. At some point, I began confiding in this guy about personal matters, and he validated my feelings and offered his insights. This continued for roughly a month until my boyfriend found out. I had merely been chatting with this individual. He accessed my computer, reviewed Discord, and discovered that conversation along with other exchanges I'd had. That night, he kicked my son and me out while yelling at us to leave. He took screenshots from my computer, sent them to himself, and attempted to post them publicly on Facebook. Ultimately, he refrained from doing that. I departed with only a few belongings and stayed at a friend's house for a couple of days. Eventually, I texted him, requesting to return home since I couldn't pack everything in a single day, and coming over daily was detrimental to both of us. He agreed, so I returned home. We shared some drinks and laid in the same bed. I, being intoxicated, asked if I could hold him, and he obliged, so I settled close without wrapping my arms around him. I fell asleep only to wake around 4 a.m. He was experiencing heartburn and had been unable to fall back asleep for an hour. I helped him find relief by providing him with Tums, milk, and even some Tylenol. I rubbed his stomach, and he requested a back and head scratch, which I happily did. After some time, I gave him space until he asked me to rub his belly again. Eventually, we ended up having sexual relations. We cuddled and fell asleep together, then woke up the next morning. I prepared his uniform, even though I felt detached, as if it were just a casual encounter. I was focused on being helpful. As he was getting ready to leave, he asked me to pull up our phone carrier to check the text messages I had sent and received. Unfortunately, the app did not allow us to access any information for either of our accounts. He then inquired how I knew about him downloading Whisper immediately after he installed it. Again, I said, I just knew, which made him angry, leading him to accuse me of trying to deceive him. He left, sending me a message afterward, stating that I had one chance to tell the truth, but by not doing so, I had chosen to lie. I insisted I hadn't lied but was willing to disclose what he wanted to know. He essentially replied that it was too late and instructed me to remove my belongings from his bedroom. That is what I have been occupied with today. I am unable to include our ages at the beginning, but I am 26 years old female, and he is 26 years old male. Story 2. How do I, 24/F, move forward or reunite with him, 26/M? Advice on how to reconnect or move forward after a breakup. Me, 24F, him 26M. For context, my former partner, 26M, recently ended a nearly 2-year relationship with me, 24F, which was long distance. The split was not due to anything extreme like infidelity. Rather, it stemmed from a combination of our issues over the previous weeks, with poor mental health being a major factor. In recent weeks, I struggled with time management related to my university work and experienced significant stress as I worked tirelessly to complete my assignments. Although we continued to text daily and our messages remained affectionate and normal, I realize now that I should have been more present and reached out to him more often. My ex is not someone who openly expresses his feelings. He tends to bottle things up until they eventually come out all at once. He occasionally projects his emotions onto others and shifts blame. His texts were so affectionate that I did not suspect anything was wrong until the week leading up to our breakup, for which I take responsibility. My body was so exhausted that I spent the majority of that week sleeping, which meant I failed to respond or communicate with him adequately and was not there for him as I should have been. One day, I noticed a change in his texts, and before I realized it, everything fell apart. He ultimately became quite ill due to the pressures of work, exams, and life in general, and feeling neglected by me only exacerbated his mental health struggles, leading him to neglect his own well-being to the point that he required hospitalization. It was a week filled with emotional strain for both of us, and he endured significant physical pain as well. When he was discharged, we had our final conversation, during which he seemed incredibly low, as though he had given up on everything. I understand how damaging mental health can be, but during the heated discussions about whether to end our relationship, he assigned some of the blame for his illness to me. He later acknowledged that it was a mutual responsibility, but expressed that his mental health had significantly deteriorated during the times he felt unsupported and unimportant, which caused him to go through a painful cycle of missing me, experiencing fluctuating feelings, and questioning everything. Additionally, he was so pessimistic about his physical health that he stated he believed breaking up was the fairest option for me, considering he might not recover. The added pressure of our long-distance relationship and the need for good exam results made him feel as though he could not succeed. I fervently tried to persuade him against the breakup, but I could not change his mind. He means everything to me, and I imagined a future together. By the end of our call, once emotions had settled, we shifted to a softer and more tender conversation about love and loss. We agreed to remain in contact to support each other, particularly in relation to his medical recovery. At the conclusion of our call, we made promises to one another, including the commitment to try again after we both reached a place of physical and mental stability. In the week following the breakup, we have continued to message each other to share our feelings and support one another. His doctors have implemented a treatment plan for him. Over this week, his messages have grown increasingly hopeful about recovery, and he has realized that his primary focus should be on his physical health as well as his mental state. He mentioned the importance of spending time on our individual healing journeys. He also noted that he is still sorting through his emotions, including the feelings and repercussions of the breakup. This suggests he has not fully come to terms with it, whereas I feel I have. This discrepancy has left me feeling very conflicted about how to move forward. Because he has not yet achieved a sense of mental stability, it seems there is little clarity on how to proceed or what to anticipate. I am holding on to our commitments, especially the one about trying again once we have both grown stronger, but I can't help but be plagued by what-ifs. My friends have advised me that focusing on individual healing is beneficial. Some of them are mutual friends and noted that he mentioned his need for time, which is a temporary situation rather than a permanent farewell, as I seem to perceive it. They believe it is crucial for me to pursue personal growth and find a sense of peace so that I can experience happiness regardless of the outcome. They shared the saying that if it is meant to be, we will reunite and give it another chance. They still have faith in him and his promises, but they also recognized that the breakup constituted a serious breach of our fundamental commitment to each other. We had vowed to work through anything except infidelity. Despite his mental exhaustion, it is clear that he still cares about me deeply, and we both hold each other in high regard. This has been a lengthy narrative, but I would like to receive advice and feedback from others, particularly if you have experienced a similar situation. I understand that I will need to focus on my own healing journey for a while, but I worry that he may drift away, and I am unsure if that fear is justified or simply a result of my tendency to overthink. I could say that I am nearly desperate to rebuild what we had because I know we can achieve our goals. But while I comprehend that he is not in a healthy mental state right now, it feels as if I am the sole one fighting for us. My friends believe that both he and I need to achieve some level of personal development before even considering reconciliation, but I find that incredibly challenging, as it entails fostering hope for a reunion, and I fear the opposite outcome may occur after investing in that hope. I just need some guidance on how to proceed, what mindset I should adopt regarding him, and if anyone has experienced something similar or reunited with their partners, I would like to hear how your journey unfolded. Summary: the breakup occurred due to both parties, with both the causes and the breakup itself adversely affecting mental health. My ex-boyfriend became ill and required hospitalization, which added to the emotional and mental strain. There remains mutual care and support, with both individuals valuing each other significantly. My ex is prioritizing his individual healing journey for some time, both mentally and physically, while I must also navigate my own mental recovery. I want to know if I should maintain hope or how to progress given that he was my everything. If anyone has similar experiences or reunited with their exes on a stronger foundation, I would appreciate hearing about the journey to that point as well. Story 3. How do I, 27F, deal with my insecure boyfriend, 28M? We have been in a relationship since we were 18. We got to know each other through a mutual friend, share the same interests, engage in many activities together during our free time, uphold similar values, appreciate each other's families, and have lived together for 8 years now. My boyfriend is generally a very loving and understanding person, and we support one another. However, there is an issue. Due to certain events from his childhood, he experiences a lot of self-doubt and insecurity. In recent years, this wasn't much of a concern, aside from a few rare instances, but for several months, it has truly become a problem. It started when I returned to university to obtain a higher academic degree in a technical field. For context, he is a factory worker with a respectable income. I already possess a degree, was self-employed for a number of years and earned a good income, and now I seek further education to secure a better salary and improved job prospects. You understand how it goes. I also work part-time to maintain the same lifestyle as before, and I have saved some money, so we continue to share bills equally. During the week, I live near the campus, as I would otherwise have to commute 4 hours every day, which I wish to avoid, and return home every Friday and travel to university every Monday. We addressed this situation before I enrolled in university, and he expressed no objections. I also did not see an issue since when I pursued my first degree. I lived on campus and faced no problems. We strive to schedule date nights on weekends, partake in short trips, socialize with our mutual friends, etc. We also communicate every other day via video calls and text messages throughout the day. I also aim to handle the household chores during the weekend since he manages them all week, obviously, as I am not at home. Sometimes when I return home, he is very quiet and aloof and occasionally makes unkind remarks. When I inquire about his mood, he expresses fear that I might meet someone new and abandon him. Or even worse, that I could betray him, which has never even crossed my mind because why would I? I always strive to reassure him that I would never consider doing that. When I ask him if I have done anything to give him cause for such thoughts, he cannot identify a single reason. This issue peaked in December when I was home for the Christmas break. I met with some old friends from school, all female, to reconnect. I sent him pictures of us during the gathering and texted him intermittently. I admit I came home late that night because we lost track of time after not seeing each other for several years. Thus, I arrived home well after midnight, which is not unusual for us. Whenever we go out with mutual friends, or if either of us meets their friends, it usually ends up quite late because we are quite talkative. Nevertheless, he stopped responding to my texts or sending me goodnight messages. When I arrived home, he was already in bed. The next day, he barely spoke to me and even declined to give me a kiss or a hug. He later shared that he was imagining I was with someone else. Keep in mind, I had sent him pictures of me with the girls and numerous texts. He explains that he was projecting this fear because a friend of his recently discovered that his wife was unfaithful. He apologized for his behavior and stated that he trusts me, so I thought that was the end of it. However, since then, there have been numerous similar occurrences. He even accused me of contacting another male while we were working on a university project through a Discord call. I even showed him the project, and my interaction with my teammate was in no way romantic or flirtatious. Whenever I bring up these concerns, he appears very distant, angry, or sad. I understand this is a delicate issue, but it feels as though I am walking on eggshells. He tends to be in a foul mood for 1 or 2 days, except when he is with his brother or friends, then his mood improves much more quickly. It also seems that he predominantly focuses on the negative aspects of everything around him and constantly complains about the sun, rain, neighbors, colleagues, my colleagues and friends, my mother who invited him to dinner, etc. Around Christmas, we finally managed to engage in a conversation about these issues, and he acknowledged that he requires professional assistance because this is not something one can handle alone. I suspect it may be some form of depression or something similar. However, thus far, he has not even attempted to find a therapist. He wouldn't even need to call them himself. Our healthcare provider offers to make the call for you, requiring only that you fill out an online form, which makes me feel somewhat disregarded. Furthermore, his mood fluctuations have intensified since I returned to university at the beginning of January. He repeatedly tells me that he thinks I might not like him anymore, which contributes to his negative mood, causing me to sometimes dread going home, transitioning from the neutral and friendly university environment to the unpredictable home atmosphere. And I am feeling a bit exhausted by this situation. It has already started to affect our intimate life, which only exacerbates the problem, since he perceives his fears as validating. But I struggle to be intimate with someone who is cold and moody most of the time and may refuse to give me a hug on occasion. I try to demonstrate my love and support and discuss these issues with him. But at present, it feels as if my words and actions do not reach him, which makes it more challenging for me to express affection given my constant fear of rejection, especially after a tough week at university or work. He also cannot tell me what I should do differently to make him feel better. I feel really distressed about this, and I wish to help him improve, but I believe he must also make an effort and seek professional help, or even reach out to a friend, but he refuses to do that too, and I am unsure why. Right now, I find myself wondering if it would be better to break up, and I feel guilty for even contemplating this since we have shared our first experiences together. We are planning a significant vacation in the summer, with flights and hotels already booked, and had also discussed marriage, which I currently do not see happening for us. What would you do if you were in my position? Do you see any way I can salvage the relationship and/or assist him in regaining confidence without exhausting myself? Is there something I might be overlooking or could approach differently? What are your thoughts on all of this? Story 4. Advice on how to reunite or move forward after a breakup. Me, 24/F him, 26/M. For context, my former partner, 26 male, recently ended a nearly 2-year relationship with me, 24 female, which was long distance. The breakup was not due to anything extreme like infidelity. Instead, it resulted from a combination of both our shortcomings over the past few weeks, with poor mental health being a significant factor. In recent weeks, I struggled with managing my university workload, leading to immense stress as I worked tirelessly day and night to keep up. Although we continued to text every day, filled with affection and familiarity, I realize now that I should have been more present and reached out to him more often. My former partner was not one to openly express his feelings. He often bottled things up, only for them to erupt all at once. He also occasionally shifts blame onto others. His messages felt normal and affectionate until the final week before our breakup, which I take responsibility for, as I was so exhausted that I spent most of the week sleeping, resulting in poor communication and not being supportive enough for him. Eventually, one day his messages changed, and before I could process it, everything fell apart. He became quite ill due to work, exams, and life pressures, and feeling neglected by me was the final straw that pushed his mental health over the edge, leading him to neglect his own well-being to the extent of requiring hospitalization. That week was filled with emotional distress for both of us, alongside his physical suffering. After he was discharged, we had a final conversation in which he seemed incredibly low, almost as if he had surrendered to despair. I understand how destructive mental health can be, but during our discussions about whether to end the relationship, he ultimately placed blame on me for his illness. He later acknowledged that it was a mutual issue, but admitted that during the times he felt unsupported or unimportant, his mental health severely deteriorated, causing him to cycle through feelings of longing, loss, and confusion. In addition to that, he expressed that he believed breaking up was the fairest option for me, as he thought he might not recover. The additional pressure from our long-distance relationship affected his exam results needed for relocating, and I believe his depression contributed to his belief that he could not accomplish that. I desperately attempted to prevent the breakup, but I was unable to persuade him otherwise. He means everything to me, and I was envisioning a future together. By the end of our conversation, things had calmed, transitioning back to a more tender discussion about love and loss. We agreed to remain in contact to support each other, particularly concerning his medical recovery. We pledged to try again once we both, especially he, reach a state of physical and mental wellness. During the week following our breakup, we have continued messaging to express our feelings and be there for one another. His doctors have provided him with a treatment plan. Throughout the week, his messages have grown increasingly optimistic about his recovery, and he has come to realize that focusing on his physical health, as well as his mental well-being, is crucial. He mentioned that it might be beneficial for us to spend some time working on our personal healing journeys. He stated that he is still navigating his emotions regarding the breakup. While I interpret this to mean he has not fully accepted it, I, on the other hand, have accepted it. This divergence has left me feeling incredibly conflicted about how to proceed. Since he has not reached a stable emotional state, clarity on how to approach this situation and what to expect is lacking. I cling to our promises, especially the one about trying again once we become stronger individuals, but I fear that if that time comes, things may fall apart once more. My friends have advised me that pursuing personal healing is essential. Some, who are mutual acquaintances, pointed out that he suggested this would be a temporary situation, not a permanent goodbye, as I have been interpreting it. They believe it is crucial for me to grow personally and find a place of peace to be happy, regardless of the outcome. They shared the sentiment that if it is meant to be, we will reunite and give it another chance. They still have faith in him and his promises, but they note that breaking up was a fundamental promise that was violated. We had promised to fight through anything except infidelity. Despite his mental exhaustion, I can still see that he cares for me deeply, and we both value each other immensely. This has been quite a lengthy account, but I would appreciate any advice and feedback from others, particularly those who have faced similar situations. I know I will need to commit to this personal healing journey for a while, but I fear he may fade from my life, and I am uncertain if that is a valid concern or merely my tendency to overthink. You could say I feel desperate to make things work again because I believe we can achieve success together, but as much as I understand he is not in the best mental state, it often feels like I am the only one fighting for us. My friends emphasize that both he and I must experience personal growth before contemplating another attempt, but I find it incredibly challenging, as it requires holding on to hope for a future reconciliation. I am frightened of facing the opposite outcome after investing so much hope. I am seeking advice on how to move forward, the mindset I should adopt towards him, and insights from those who have gone through similar experiences or successfully reunited with partners to share how their journey unfolded. Summary: the breakup occurred due to issues on both sides, and both the causes and the breakup negatively affected mental health. My ex-boyfriend also fell ill and required hospitalization, contributing to our emotional struggle. We still care for each other deeply and provide mutual support, with my ex prioritizing individual healing for the time being. I also need to focus on my own mental recovery. I am uncertain about whether to maintain hope or how to progress, given that he was my everything. Additionally, I would like to hear from anyone who has had similar experiences or has reunited with an ex on stronger terms about their journey.